55. Double nickels. I never thought I'd make it that far, let alone mark it with something so final. I remember the morning clearly. Sunlight slashed through the blinds like it had something to prove, and the smell of burnt toast wafted in from the kitchen. Linda, my wife of nearly 3 decades, wasn't exactly a culinary artist, but she always managed to massacre breakfast with an endearing consistency. This time, though, I didn't hear her humming or the usual clatter of pans. Just silence, broken by the occasional beep from the coffee maker. I found her on her phone, perched at the edge of the sofa, thumb scrolling, eyes glazed. She barely glanced up when I walked in. "Happy birthday," she said like she was checking off a chore. No kiss, no card, just that empty phrase and a flick of her thumb. I didn't ask for much. A quiet day, a beer or two, maybe a steak if she was feeling generous. But I knew better than to expect warmth from someone who'd been thawing emotionally since our youngest left for college. I poured my coffee and took a seat at the dining table, sipping slowly, pretending the bitter taste wasn't mirrored in my chest. That's when Ryan walked in, our golden boy, 27, freshly married, a job in tech he never shut up about, and the kind of self-assurance that only the blind and coddled can afford. He stood there, one hand in his pocket, the other holding that overpriced phone like it was fused to his palm. "Dad," he started, "we need to talk." Now, when someone opens with that, it's never good. Especially when the we isn't his wife and him, but him and his entitlement. I looked up from my mug, already bracing. "Camila and I need a bigger place," he said. "She's pregnant." That caught me off guard. Not the pregnancy. I had eyes and a memory. She'd skipped wine at Christmas and started wearing loose tops in April. What struck me was how he said it, like I should have been taking notes on their future plans and handing over the keys at the appropriate moment. "Congratulations," I said, slow and dry. He mistook my tone for encouragement. "So, we were thinking, maybe you could give us the apartment." Just like that. Not borrow. Not rent. Give. My apartment. The one I'd paid off with 30 years of backbreaking shifts, overtime, skipped vacations, and duct-taped budgets. The one his mother and I bought when we were too broke to furnish the bedroom and had to sleep on a mattress on the floor for a year. The one I fixed up myself when the pipes burst, the ceiling sagged, the balcony crumbled. That apartment was more than bricks and drywall. It was history. My history. And he wanted it like it was a hand-me-down sweater. I stared at him. Really stared. He didn't flinch. He actually looked proud, like he was offering me a chance to be useful in my twilight years. Linda didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her silence was approval. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just Ryan's idea. This was a coordinated effort. Camila had probably put the bug in his ear, and Linda had nodded along like she always did when someone else's needs mattered more than mine. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just stood up, walked to the bedroom, and stared at the photo on the dresser. Our wedding day. Linda in white, me in a rented tux, both of us too young and stupid to see the cracks already forming. That night, I called a realtor. 3 weeks later, the apartment was sold. I handed Ryan a check for a modest down payment, enough to buy him silence, but not gratitude. The rest I used to buy a house 2 hours north, buried in the woods, surrounded by nothing but trees and quiet. Linda didn't follow. She didn't ask to. She stayed close to Ryan, to Camila, to the future she thought was brighter without me. I left without fanfare. Packed a couple of suitcases, my toolbox, and the fishing rods that hadn't seen water in years. I left behind the framed photos, the souvenirs from family trips, the crusty wedding album. Let them rot. On my 55th birthday, my son demanded my apartment for his wife. I sold it without saying a word, bought a house in the woods, and disinherited them both. That was the last birthday I ever spent with family. And the first day I started living for myself. The first thing you notice in the woods is how loud silence really is. It isn't empty, like city people think. It's thick, full of presence. Wind rustling dry leaves, woodpeckers beating like metronomes, and the hum of life under every damn branch. It's not peaceful, not at first. It's like the world whispering everything you tried to ignore. I moved in on a Tuesday. The house was old, built in the 60s by someone who knew how to hold a hammer without Googling it. Wood-paneled walls, a stubborn furnace, and a porch that creaked like it had secrets. It was perfect. I spent the first week fixing things that didn't need fixing. The door hinges, the mailbox, a shelf in the pantry that tilted just slightly, like it was judging me. I needed something to keep my hands busy, to keep my mind from circling back to that moment. Ryan's face, smug and expectant, like I owed him something just for existing. But it wasn't Ryan that gnawed at me the most. It was Linda. You don't spend 30 years with someone and walk away clean. Even if the last 10 were like living with a roommate who couldn't be bothered to look you in the eye. Even if you can trace the exact moment you became invisible, sometime after the second miscarriage, I think, when grief built a wall she never bothered to tear down. I kept waiting for her to call. Not because I missed her, because I needed to hear what excuse she'd make. Maybe she'd say it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe she'd offer a brittle apology, the kind made of plastic, shiny, but useless. But she didn't. Not a text. Not an email. Nothing. She let me disappear like a stain on the carpet. Out of sight, out of effort. I should have felt free. But freedom without closure is just exile. So I started writing letters I never sent. Not to her. To myself. Scraps of memories, moments I'd buried. The time she laughed so hard at my dumb impression of her mother, she dropped a wine glass. The smell of her hair after a storm. The way she used to squeeze my hand under the table when we were playing poker with friends, signaling me to bluff. Those things haunt you more than the betrayal. Because they were real. Once, on day 14, I got a call from an unknown number. For a moment, I hoped. Dad, it was Ryan. I didn't answer. I just wanted to say, Camila and I moved into the apartment. Thanks again. I waited. Maybe there'd be a "we miss you" or "come visit." There wasn't. He hung up. That was the moment something in me clicked. Cold, sharp, final. They didn't miss me. They missed what I gave. And Linda, she didn't choose him over me. She chose ease, comfort, the path of least resistance. That's when I started making lists. Not the kind that die on notepads. These were blueprints. I listed everything I'd given them over the years. Money, cars, tuition, bailouts, emotional labor, all of it. And then I made another list, what I'd taken back. So far, one apartment, one future inheritance, one version of myself that bent over backward to make everyone else comfortable. Not bad for 2 weeks. I installed a new lock on the gate, put up a camera, not because I was scared, because I wanted to know if they ever got the bright idea to come looking for me. They didn't. That Sunday, I sat on the porch with a glass of bourbon and watched the trees shift in the breeze like they were breathing. I realized something. Abandonment isn't always a knife in the back. Sometimes, it's just a slow erasure. A quiet, cumulative shrug. You wake up one day and realize you've been alone in the marriage for years, talking to a ghost who still takes up half the bed. So no, I wasn't grieving. I was detoxing. And in the quiet, in the still ache of being unwanted, I found something I hadn't felt in decades. Clarity. The thing about disappearing is no one actually notices. Not the people you thought mattered. Not the ones who promised they'd always check in. Turns out, you can fall off the face of the earth and they won't even trip. It had been a month since I left. I kept a calendar on the fridge, nothing fancy, just a cheap paper one with pictures of old barns and forgotten roads. Every day, I marked an X in red. Not to count the days I'd been gone, but to remind myself how long it had been since anyone called just to ask if I was alive. Not Ryan. Not Linda. Not even my brother. But Camila? Oh, she'd posted on social media. I still had a dummy account I used to check now and then, just to see the wreckage from a distance. New beginnings, red heart, grateful for our cozy space. A filtered photo of my old apartment. My leather recliner. The bookshelf I built by hand. Gone were the wedding photos, the ceramic turtle Linda loved. In their place, a beige throw blanket and some ridiculous scented candles. They'd turned my home into a showroom. A curated aesthetic. The caption was worse than the image. Grateful. Grateful for what? For the man she steamrolled without ever shaking his hand? For the legacy she stole before the ink on her vows had even dried? And Ryan. He was smiling in the background, holding a mug like some parody of domestic bliss. Not a word about me. Not even a mention. I'd become the invisible man. That night, I took a walk through the woods behind the house. The trail was faint, barely more than a deer path, but I followed it anyway. My flashlight danced between the trees, catching flashes of white bark and thick roots. There's something about walking alone in the dark that strips you bare. No distractions, just your thoughts and whatever's lurking. At one point, I stopped. There was an old tree, gnarled and twisted, growing out of the remnants of a rusted fence. It looked like it had swallowed the metal hole. I stood there for a long time, just staring at it. That tree had survived storms, probably lightning, and now it wore that fence like a scar. It hadn't broken. It had adapted. And I realized something. I wasn't broken either. I was just reshaping. See, people like Ryan and Linda, they think the world revolves around them. That they can bulldoze through your life, take what they want, and expect you to keep smiling. They never imagined the day you stop playing along. But I had. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what came next. The next morning, I started cleaning out the attic. The house had belonged to a man named Vernon, a World War II vet who'd passed away 10 years ago. His kids sold the place without even emptying the storage. Typical. But I didn't mind. The attic was full of relics, old trunks, yellowed newspapers, a typewriter that still worked. I found journals, letters, his discharge papers, pieces of a life no one wanted. And I read them, every night. Because Vernon? He knew what it felt like to be forgotten by the people you bled for. There was one line he wrote in 1972 that stuck with me. I gave them everything, and they left without saying goodbye. So now I live for me, and the silence answers better than they ever did. That man was speaking from the grave, and I understood every damn word. So I started writing too. Not just letters to myself anymore, but a real journal. A reckoning. I wrote down every time Linda shut me out with a sigh, every time Ryan mocked me for not getting modern life. I listed the small humiliations, missed birthdays, the time Camila joked that I was so analog, the Sunday dinners where they spoke around me like I was an antique sideboard. And slowly, a plan began to take shape. Not revenge. That's too easy. Too messy. No, this was about control. Quiet, deliberate control. I was going to reclaim my name, my worth, and my damn narrative. I made a will. A new one. Everything, this house, my savings, the retirement account they assumed was theirs, was going to charity. I picked a small veterans fund and a scholarship for kids from broken homes. People who'd never asked for my apartment. People who knew the value of a second chance. And as I signed the documents at the notary's office, I felt something inside me finally settle. Not peace. Something sharper. Justice. It was a Thursday when the past came knocking. Literally. I was out back, splitting firewood. The old pine logs were stubborn, wet from spring rains, and every swing of the axe echoed like a war drum through the trees. I liked it that way. The rhythm, the focus, the feel of something breaking under my hands. It was honest work. Something I could trust, unlike people. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. Hesitant. Soft, but not unfamiliar. I wiped sweat from my brow and walked around to the front porch, the axe still in my hand, not because I planned to use it, but because I wasn't planning to put it down. And there she was. Linda. Standing there like she'd just popped in to borrow sugar. She hadn't aged a day in 2 years, but something in her face had sunk. Not the skin or her eyes. The color was the same, that gray-blue I used to drown in. But the warmth? Gone. Replaced with a look I knew too well. Regret. Or worse, need. Hi, she said. I didn't respond. She glanced at the axe. Planning to kill someone? Just chopped up memories, I said. Want to help? That stung. I saw it in the way she flinched. But she didn't leave. Can I come in? She asked, voice soft. Measured. Depends. You here to ask for another house, or just the keys to my truck this time? She sighed. I didn't know he'd ask you like that. I laughed, loud, humorless. You didn't stop him, either. She stepped forward. Ryan's struggling. The baby's due soon. He didn't think. No, I cut in. He did think. He thought I was weak. That I'd roll over like I always did. That I'd hand over everything I built because he didn't want to wait 5 more years to buy something on his own. I didn't come here to fight. Of course you didn't, I said, crossing my arms. You came because something went wrong. You don't show up when things are fine. You don't check in. You don't call. So why now? She looked down at her hands. No ring. That caught my eye. He lost his job, she said, quietly. Laid off 2 weeks ago. Camila's panicking. And they found out about the will. There it was. The real reason. They'd finally noticed the money wasn't waiting at the end of the tunnel. That the golden goose had flown north, nested in solitude, and changed its will. And you thought I'd change my mind, I said. You thought one sad visit, one look at your tired face, and I'd undo the choice I made when you sat there in silence while our son demanded the roof off my head. I made a mistake. No, you made a choice. She blinked. That part always confused people, the difference between a mistake and a choice. but I knew it intimately. A mistake is spilling wine on the rug. A choice is pouring it. I didn't know how far you'd go, she said. I searching mine. Disinheriting your only child? Cutting yourself off from everyone? No, I said. I cut off the rot. It just happened to be everyone. She didn't cry. Linda wasn't the crying type. But her voice cracked. He's still your son. And I'm still his father. Which means I taught him that actions have consequences. You should be proud. Lesson stuck. She stepped back, hand gripping the railing. I took a slow breath and leaned the axe against the porch. Walked to the door. Opened it. You can come in, I said. Hope flickered in her eyes. To use the bathroom. Then you're gone. She froze. That's it. That's mercy. Because I could have done worse. I could have gone public with the letters I found in the attic. The ones Vernon wrote, some addressed to Linda. Turns out she'd been coming up here before I bought the place. With someone else. Someone long dead. But I didn't mention that yet. Not because I was sparing her. Because timing is everything. Let a woman believe she's crawling back on her own terms, and you'll watch the truth unravel itself, slow, sticky, and full of shame. She used the bathroom. Didn't touch anything. Came out 10 minutes later, eyes glossy. I didn't ask her if she'd be back. I knew she would. Desperation always loops back to its source. And when it does, that's when the real reckoning begins. Linda left without another word. She didn't look back. That part surprised me. Most people, when they come to beg, at least give you the decency of a farewell glance. Some look that says, this won't be the last time. But she didn't. She just walked down the steps, back to her car, and drove off down the gravel road, wheels crunching like dry bones beneath the tires. And for a few days, it stayed quiet again. But I knew that silence wouldn't last. That wasn't a goodbye. That was a retreat. She went home to regroup, not to give up. So I waited. And sure enough, the call came 5 days later. Blocked number. Cowards always call from those. Dad? Ryan's voice. Slower than usual. Like the confidence had been peeled away. Can we talk? About what? I asked, already knowing the answer. He paused. I made a mess of things. No kidding. I stayed silent. I didn't mean to make you feel used, he went on. I was just scared. Camila's pregnancy, the apartment, the job. Everything hit me at once. I let him ramble. He sounded like a kid again, the same tone he used when he crashed my truck at 17 and begged me not to tell his mother. But back then, the stakes were a dented bumper and an insurance hike. No? He'd burned the bridge and tried to pawn the ashes. I want to make it right, he finally said. Oh. I asked. So you'll be wiring me $400,000 to buy the apartment back? Dada. No? Then you don't want to make it right. You want to reset. There's a difference. He was quiet again. Then, look, we're in a bad place. Camila's parents won't help us, and Mom, she doesn't have much. I bit back a laugh. Linda never had much because she always spent what she had on appearances. She was the kind of woman who'd buy a designer bag instead of fixing a leaky roof. Impressions over integrity. That's probably why she and Camila got along so well. Then he said it, the real reason for the call. I was wondering if you could co-sign a loan for us. There it was. After all the silence, the betrayal, the entitlement, he still thought I was one signature away from solving his problems. Let me get this straight, I said, leaning back in my chair. You want me, the man you tried to evict from his own life, to vouch for your ability to not screw up again? His voice got tight. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You're my father. And you're my son. That used to mean something. He didn't respond. I could hear his breath hitching, like he wasn't sure whether to get angry or cry. I kept going. You know what the problem is, Ryan? You never learned the value of earning anything. You were handed too much. By me. By her. And now that the pipeline's dry, you're looking around like the world broke a promise. I made mistakes, he said. But I'm trying to fix them. Good, I said. But you won't be fixing them with my name. I could hear Camila in the background then, asking who he was talking to. Her voice was sharp, impatient. She didn't sound like someone who missed her father-in-law. She sounded like someone who was annoyed the plan wasn't working. I hung up. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. Later that night, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a folder I'd started keeping the week I moved here, the ledger. I called it. Inside, a running list of who reached out, when, and why. Ryan's entry was 2 lines long. April 9th, called to ask for cosign. Denied. That was it. Facts. No emotion. No nostalgia. Just data. Because this wasn't just my escape, it was an audit. And now I was keeping receipts. 3 days after Ryan's call, I found the envelope. It was wedged between two books on the shelf in the hallway, paperback spy novels I hadn't touched since moving in. I only spotted it because one of the titles had shifted out of line, just enough to catch my eye. That kind of thing bothers me now. Maybe because I've been left so out of place myself. I pulled the books apart, and there it was. Cream-colored. No name. No stamp. But the handwriting? Linda's. I recognized the tilde of the L, the way she looped her D, like it was afraid of commitment. That script had signed birthday cards, checks, and the lease on our first apartment. And now it was hiding in my hallway like a coward. I opened it slowly. No date. No greeting. Just a page and a half of tightly packed cursive, and it read like a confession. I didn't come up there to ask you for help. I came to see if you were still the man I remembered. The man who used to make me laugh before the years turned him into someone bitter and silent. I didn't leave you out of malice. I let it happen because I didn't know how to fix what we had broken. And maybe I was too weak to try. Vernon wasn't what you think. I stayed in that cabin once, years ago, with a friend. I was angry at you. You were working too much, gone too long. I needed to feel something. He listened. That's all. But I never expected to find out you'd bought the same house. Maybe that's fate, or irony, or punishment. I never wanted Ryan to take your place in my life. But he did. Not as a partner. As a project. I gave him everything I had left because I had nothing left to give myself. If this is the last time we ever speak, or don't, I want you to know I didn't forget who you were. I just couldn't face who I became. Linda. I read it twice. Then again, the part about Vernon? It wasn't an affair, at least not in the physical sense. But it wasn't innocent either. Emotional infidelity leaves different bruises. They don't show up on skin. They show up in silence. In distance. In the weight of a look that never lands. She hadn't come back to rekindle anything. She came to confirm something. That I was gone for good. And I was. Whatever tether we still had, she cut it herself. All that remained was her guilt, and she had the nerve to leave it behind like an unwanted coat in a stranger's closet. But I didn't rip the letter up. I tucked it into the ledger, sealed in a plastic sleeve. Evidence. That night, I sat on the porch with a bottle of bourbon and a cigar I'd been saving since I left. The stars were clear, and the wind whispered through the trees like it knew secrets. I thought about how many years I spent asking questions I never got answers to. Now I had one. Why she let it all fall apart? Because it was easier than building it back up. I could almost feel sorry for her, almost. But then I remembered the look on her face the day Ryan asked for my apartment. Not shock. Not dismay. Approval. And just like that, the ember of sympathy died out. The next morning, I made another entry in the ledger. April 15th. Linda left a letter. No apology. Only explanation. Confirmed prior emotional disloyalty. Status. Irrelevant. I closed the book. Then I called a friend of mine, Dale, from back in the city. Old war buddy. Still owed me a favor. I need you to do some checking, I said. Find out where Camila's working now. He didn't ask why. He knew better. You want this quiet? He asked. Quiet as a confession booth, I said. Because something told me Ryan wasn't just struggling. He was drowning. And Camila? She was probably already looking for the next life raft. I wasn't going to interfere. Not yet. But I'd be there when the dam broke. To watch the ones who built it go under. Dale came through faster than I expected. I got the call just 2 days later. She's working at a boutique real estate firm in the city, he said. Mostly high-end rentals, some cash-only deals. Word is, she's got a side hustle too. Side hustle? I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. He sighed. Instagram consulting. Pushing product. Doing influencer junk. Not illegal. Just shallow. That tracked. Camila had always struck me as the kind of woman who could sell snow to an Eskimo, then ask for a thank you note and a 5-star review. Pretty, polished, plastic. Every word calculated for optics. Not one honest sentence in the whole house, not if it didn't start with me. Dale hesitated. There's something else. Say it. She's been seen out a lot. Restaurants. Hotel lounges. Not alone. I closed my eyes. There it was. I didn't feel anger. Not anymore. That part of me was calcified. Hardened from the inside out. What I felt was expectation. Because this was the pattern. Ryan was always too blind to see the edge of the cliff, and too proud to admit when he'd already walked off it. Camila, she was already climbing back up, using someone else's back. Anything concrete? I asked. No photos. Yet. But I can have someone tell her. Don't, I said. I don't want proof. I want patience. Because proof means conflict. And conflict brings attention. But patience? That brings collapse. I hung up and poured myself a coffee. Sat in the kitchen with the morning sun slicing across the floor and thought about all the things I could do, and why I wouldn't. I could call Ryan, tip him off. But he wouldn't believe me. Not at first. He'd defend her. That's what desperation does. It makes you kneel before the person holding the blade, begging them not to twist it. I could show up, make a scene, humiliate them both. But that would feed their narrative. Dad's unstable. He's bitter. He's trying to ruin our lives. No. I tried the high road once. Got trampled. This time, I'd take the quiet path. Let her unravel naturally. Let Ryan catch her phone face up at 2 a.m. Let him scroll through the texts with a pit in his stomach. Let the hotel charges show up on the joint account he thought was sacred. Let him discover betrayal the same way I did, by choking on silence. Because the only justice worth serving is the kind they serve themselves. That evening, I went down to the lake near the house. Brought my fishing rod for show, but I didn't cast a line. Just sat there, watching the water. Thinking. I remembered Ryan's first breakup. He was 17. The girl dumped him before prom, and he locked himself in his room for a day, blasting music and refusing to eat. I sat outside his door for an hour, just waiting. When he opened it, eyes puffy and angry, I told him something I never thought he'd forget. You can give someone everything and still lose them. The trick is not losing yourself, too. But he did, because he never listened. I left the lake just before dark, and when I got home, there was a voicemail waiting. Linda again. Her voice was tight, controlled. The kind of tone you use when you've rehearsed what you're about to say 3 times in the mirror. Hi. I don't know if you've heard, but Ryan and Camila are having problems. I think she might be stepping out on him. I thought you should know. Oh, Linda, you really thought you were bringing me news? No. What you brought was confirmation. And an invitation. To watch everything you clung to fall apart the same way you let our marriage rot. I deleted the message. Didn't need to hear it twice. Instead, I opened the ledger. April 18th, Linda called. Confirmed Camila's infidelity. Panic detected. And beneath it, I wrote something new. Not a log. Not a fact. Just a prediction. By May, the tower will fall. And when it does, I'll be the only one left standing at the base. Not to catch them, but to close the book. I didn't expect the second visit. But it came anyway. A black Honda, tires grinding gravel, pulled up just after noon. I was out back sanding the porch railing when I heard it. The same kind of tension in the air you get before a thunderstorm. Everything still, holding its breath. Ryan stepped out. No Camila. No smug grin. No phone glued to his hand. He looked older. Not by years, but by weight. The kind that settles behind your eyes when your house of cards finally caves in and you're the only one standing in the rubble. I didn't say a word. He walked up the porch steps like he wasn't sure they'd hold. Maybe he wasn't sure he would. Dad, he said. I need to talk. I finished sanding the edge of the railing before I turned around. Made him sit in the moment a little longer. Let the silence grow teeth. I'm listening, I said, but I didn't offer him a seat. He didn't ask for one. He stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes darting like he couldn't quite keep his focus. She's cheating, he said. Just like that. No preamble. I nodded once. You knew. I shrugged. I suspected. You just confirmed. He ran a hand over his face and let out a bitter laugh. Figures. You always saw things I didn't. That wasn't true. I saw them, but I ignored them for decades. What may be different now? I finally stopped forgiving. Ryan sat on the porch steps. She says it was nothing. Says it was emotional and not physical. But that doesn't help. I leaned against the railing. Let me guess, I said. Texts? Dinners? The usual. He nodded. Hotel charges. She said it was work. But then I saw the messages. There it was, that crack in his voice. The sound of someone who thought loyalty was a guarantee, not a choice. You told her. He nodded again. She cried. Blamed the stress. Said I'd been distant. That I wasn't supporting her dreams. I chuckled. Couldn't help it. Funny, I said. That's the exact same script your mother used. You marry what you know, I guess. He looked up, startled. What do you mean? I sat down across from him, the space between us heavy with old wounds. Linda wasn't faithful, I said. Not physically, maybe. But emotionally? She left a long time before I did. Ryan looked like someone had smacked him with a brick made of truth. She never told me that. She wouldn't, I said. Would have ruined the image she built for you. The one where I was cold and distant, and she was just trying to hold the family together. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't know what to do. That part surprised me. Ryan never admitted weakness. Never asked for guidance. He treated advice like hand-me-down clothes, out of style and not worth trying on. So I gave him something simple. You have two choices, I said. Leave and rebuild. Or stay and rot. He looked up sharply. That's it. That's always it. He stood and paced a little, then turned back toward me. I can't afford to leave. The apartment's in both our names. We're tied up in everything together. I raised an eyebrow. You thought cohabitating was commitment. Now you're learning it's confinement. He let out a bitter laugh and kicked at a loose plank on the step. She said I was starting to remind her of you. That hit like a nail in the chest. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. And maybe he knew it, too. I looked at him hard. Then you've got two options, I said. Keep living her life, or finally start living your own. He didn't respond. Just stood there, chewing on the truth like it had a bad aftertaste. After a while, he turned to leave. At the car, he hesitated. If I walked away, would you help me? I paused. Then I shook my head. No, but I'd respect you. He didn't like that answer, but he didn't argue. He got in and drove off, dust rising behind him like a ghost. I stayed on the porch for a long while, the sun sinking low, the air thick with pine and reckoning. He's close to the edge now. Not because I pushed him, because he finally opened his eyes. And sometimes, that's the most painful shove of all. The knock came at dusk. Again. But this time, I wasn't surprised. There's a rhythm to desperation. Once it starts tapping, it doesn't stop until it gets a response or burns the house down trying. I opened the door, and there she was. Linda. Same coat. Same nervous eyes. But something was different. She wasn't here to beg. She was here to bargain. I want to talk, she said. You already did. Let her. Remember. She sighed, stepping past me like she owned the floor. I didn't stop her. Letting her in doesn't mean letting her close. She stood in the living room, looking around like she expected to find photos of us on the walls. As if this place was frozen in the version of me she still clung to. You've changed, she said finally. I nodded. You haven't. That stung. Good. She sat down. Didn't ask. Just lowered herself into the chair across from the fireplace like we were in a marriage counselor's office from 20 years ago. I spoke to Ryan, she said. I know. He's falling apart. He built the tower. Let him feel the bricks. She closed her eyes for a second. You could help. I could, I said. But I won't. Linda leaned forward, elbows on knees. He needs stability. No, I said, cool and measured. He needs consequences. Something you were never willing to give him. That landed. She leaned back, arms crossed like a teenager caught lying. I tried to protect him. No, I said. You tried to protect yourself. From being the bad guy. From being the one who said no. So you made me the villain. Every time. I was trying to keep the peace. By feeding me to the wolves. She didn't respond. So I kept going. You remember the Christmas he screamed at me over the car loan? The way he stormed out, slammed the door, didn't come back for 2 days. She nodded, reluctantly. You know what you said that night? You should have just said yes. It's not worth the fight. Her face twisted slightly. Memory has teeth when it finally bites. And the apartment? I continued. You didn't blink when he asked for it. Didn't say a word. Just watched me die in silence, then helped him move the body. I didn't think you'd actually leave, she said. Quiet. Honest. Yeah, I said. You never did. You thought I'd stay out of habit. That I'd rot in my role. That I'd sit quietly while you made me a footnote. She looked around the cabin then, like she was seeing it for the first time. It's peaceful here. It's earned. She didn't speak for a while. Then she pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. What's this? Paperwork, she said. From the apartment. Camila's name is off the lease. Ryan's staying with me. I didn't touch the envelope. And he's hurting, she said. He doesn't know who he is anymore. Good, I said. That means there's a chance he'll finally figure it out. Linda stared at me, eyes welling, but not with tears. With something worse. Recognition. She wasn't talking to the man she manipulated, or the doormat she married. She was talking to the man who'd survived them both. I thought maybe, she started, then stopped herself. No, I said. You didn't. You never thought about me. Her lips parted. Not to argue. Just to breathe. I stood up. That was her cue. She took it. At the door, she paused. Looked back. You really won't forgive me, will you? I met her eyes. Held the stare. Not with hate. Not even with anger. Just clarity. No, I won't. Because forgiveness is an ode. And I've paid enough debts that were never mine. She left without another word. The silence afterward was heavier than the words we'd said. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was final. I was on the porch again, coffee in hand, morning chill biting through my flannel, when the text came in. From Ryan. Not a call. Just 2 words. I'm outside. I looked up. There he was. Same black Honda, same tired face. But this time, he didn't get out right away. He sat there, both hands on the wheel like he was holding on to something that might disappear if he let go. I didn't move. Eventually, he did. He walked up the steps, shoulders slumped. No backpack, no duffel. Just the clothes on his back, and that look a man gets when life finally stops pretending it's a lesson and just starts swinging. I nodded toward the chair across from mine. Sit. He did. We didn't speak for a while. Just sat there, 2 men cut from the same cloth, only his had been stitched by softer hands. After a while, he spoke. She left. I didn't ask who. He rubbed his eyes. Took what little was left in the joint account. Moved out yesterday. No goodbye. Just a text saying she needed space to grow. I sipped my coffee. She's probably growing somewhere with better lighting and a second income. He gave a sad chuckle. Yeah, I waited. Because the truth takes time. The real kind. The kind that crawls out like a wounded thing, ashamed of its own shape. She said I was weak, he finally admitted. Said I leaned on everyone and never built anything for myself. I didn't answer right away. Because she was right. But he needed more than the echo. You didn't learn that on your own, I said. He looked at me. Eyes hollow. You learned it from watching a woman bend a man into a shadow. You learned that survival meant taking. That love meant having someone else fix what you broke. He said nothing. I leaned forward. Your mother loved peace more than people. And I let her teach you that comfort was more important than character. He dropped his head into his hands. I screwed up. You did. I don't even know where to go. I studied him. Finally, he was out of rope. No friends. I asked. Not real ones. Family. He looked at me. You. I shook my head slowly. Not yet. He flinched. Why not? Because coming back isn't redemption. It's geography. He swallowed hard. So what do I do? You rebuild. How? You start small. You get a job. Any job. Something that pays too little and teaches too much. You live lean. You pay off your debts. You write letters to the people you've hurt. Not to win them back. Just to acknowledge they exist. He nodded slowly. You keep your name off leases and loans. You learn to cook one good meal. You find a therapist who doesn't nod too much. And you keep your damn mouth shut until the words coming out are honest. He was quiet for a long time. Then, can I stay here for a while? No. He blinked. But there's a cabin half a mile down the road. Vernon's old hunting place. No electricity. No heat. Roof leaks. Needs fixing. He perked up. You'd let me stay there? No, I said. You'll work for it. He blinked. You'll rebuild it. You'll earn every square inch. If you stick with it, I'll deed it to you. Not now. After a year. Not for free, through sweat. And if I don't? I shrugged. Then you leave. And you take the lesson with you. He sat back in his chair. Processing. I can do that, he said finally. No, I said. You will do it. Or you won't. But don't sell me intentions. I'm not buying. He nodded. And for the first time, he didn't argue. He stood, looked around at the woods like they were foreign soil. And they were. He hadn't earned the peace here yet. I handed him a tarp, a hammer, and a roll of duct tape. Start with the roof, I said. The rain's coming tomorrow. He took them. And he walked away. No fanfare. No music swelling in the background. Just a man, a cabin, and a shot at redemption. Not a second chance. A first real one. The first night in the cabin didn't go well for him. I know because I watched the chimney. No smoke. Meaning no fire. Meaning he either couldn't get it started or didn't bother trying. The temperature dipped into the low 40s that night. Cold enough to remind you you're alive, but just barely. In the morning, I walked over, brought him a thermos of hot coffee. I found him sitting on the cabin floor, wrapped in 2 thin blankets, staring at the broken fireplace like it had insulted him. You look like hell, I said. I feel like it, he mumbled, teeth chattering. I handed him the thermos. He took it with both hands, like it weighed 100 pounds. I forgot how quiet it gets out here, he said. Yeah, I said. The truth gets louder. He took a sip, wincing at the heat, but didn't put it down. Just held it and nodded. I think I'm gonna need help fixing the flue, he admitted. It's jammed shut. I leaned against the doorframe. Help I'll give, I said. If you ask for it right. He looked up. Please. I nodded. All right then. We spent the morning on the roof, prying open rusted metal, clearing out a bird's nest the size of a damn basketball. He didn't complain. Not once. Didn't ask for breaks. Didn't check his phone, because there was no signal out here, and I never gave him the Wi-Fi code. By noon, we had the flue breathing again. By dusk, smoke curled up from the chimney like a promise kept. That night, he didn't come by. Didn't text. Didn't need to. The quiet spoke for him. But that peace didn't last long. Because the next morning, she showed up. Camila. I spotted her SUV crawling down the gravel road like it was afraid of being out here alone. I didn't go out to greet her. Just stood by the window and watched. She looked different. Less polished. More frantic. Her hair was tied up in a loose knot. No makeup. Just nerves and whatever story she thought she'd get away with. She went straight to the cabin. Didn't even knock. Ryan opened the door and stood in the threshold, arms crossed. They argued. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Some conversations are written in body language. Her hands flew. His shoulders curled inward. Her mouth moved fast. His jaw clenched slow. Then, something shifted. He stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind him. That was new. For the first time, he was guarding something even if it was barely held together by nails and stubbornness. She pointed at the house, then at mine. I could imagine her words. He put this in your head. He's poisoning you against me. You're really going to throw everything away for him? Ryan didn't budge. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to her. She stared at it like it was a grenade. Then she ripped it open, read it, and slapped him. Hard. I winced. But I didn't move. Let it play out. Camila stormed off. He stood there a moment longer, hand to his face, then walked back inside without a word. I waited. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. Ryan stood there, red mark still blooming on his cheek like a brand. She wanted the car back, he said. I opened the door wider. Did you give it to her? He nodded. Signed it over this morning. Title was in both our names, but I figured I owed her at least that. I motioned to the chair. He sat. What was in the envelope? My last check, he said. From the temp job I started 2 weeks ago. I gave her half. Told her we were done. I studied him. He didn't look proud. He looked relieved. Good, I said. Let her try and influence her way through rent payments. The world doesn't pay in likes and hashtags. He chuckled, dry and broken. I'm not asking for a gold star, he said. I just wanted to do it without dragging you into it. And that right there? That was the first sign he was becoming a man. Not a boy trying to cosplay one. You did fine, I said. But don't expect a parade. You're just at 0 now. He nodded. That's fair. That night, he returned to the cabin. Fire lit. Smoke curling again. But now? There was no more illusion. No woman. No plan. No safety net. Just him. And the echo of everything he thought would save him. And me? I went back to the ledger. April 27th, Camila came. Screamed. Left. Ryan gave her the car. Closed the chapter. Then I added. Phase 2. Rebuild. Because redemption isn't one moment. It's a structure. And he just poured the foundation. By the time May rolled in, the cabin didn't look like a cabin anymore. It looked like a promise. The roof was tight now. No more tarp. No more rain bleeding through in the middle of the night. Ryan patched the walls himself. Sanded the floor. Hauled out the moldy couch Vernon's nephews left to rot and built a bench from scrapwood instead. He even found an old water pump, fixed the seal, and got it running again. He worked. Every day. Blisters on both hands. Sweat on his back. Face raw from the sun and from something deeper penance. He still had a long way to go. But for the first time in his life, the man knew what it felt like to earn breath. And wouldn't you know it? That's exactly when the world came poking around again. It started with a letter. Certified mail. Return address? Linda. I almost laughed. She'd gone full formal. Like I was a courthouse. Not the man she gutted with a silent nod and a lifetime of passive betrayals. Inside the envelope, a neatly typed page. No warmth. Just legal ice. She was requesting a review of my revised will. Apparently, she had reason to believe my mental state was compromised at the time I altered the terms. Claimed I'd become erratic, isolationist, and potentially unstable, and therefore incapable of making fair decisions that impacted our family. She'd even included a witness statement. From Camila, of course. Said she was concerned for my well-being after witnessing uncharacteristic hostility and paranoid behavior. Claimed I banished them without reason and implied I might be under the influence of medication that altered my personality. It was beautiful, really. One last grab for the crown, disguised as concern. I didn't respond. Instead, I did what I always do. I opened the ledger. May 2nd, received legal letter from Linda, claiming incompetence. Witness, Camila. Objective, Contestwell. And then I made a phone call. To a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Caldwell Barnes. The man eats cases like this for breakfast. Retired JAG. Eyes like a hawk and a voice that could strip paint. He owed me a favor. One I never thought I'd need. But life's funny like that. I sent him the letter. He called me 20 minutes later. You want me to respond? No, I said. I want you to prepare something better. War. Legacy. He chuckled. Copy that. That night, I sat with Ryan by the fire pit between the two cabins. We hadn't said much all week, just passed tools and shared silence. But I figured he needed to know. They're trying to come after the will. He didn't speak at first, just stared into the fire. Why? Because there's still a part of your mother that can't stand losing control. And Camila? She's just along for the cut. He swallowed hard. You think they'll win? I looked at him. Really looked at him. And then I smiled. No, I said. Because the man they're talking about doesn't exist anymore. I'd had every checkup under the sun since I left. Blood work, psych evals, fitness screenings. I even went off my cholesterol meds just to be extra clean. All of it documented. Signed. Stamped. Linda wanted to pretend I was unstable. She was about to find out exactly how stable I'd become. Ryan shook his head slowly. They don't stop, do they? No, I said. Users never do. Until there's nothing left to use. He stared into the flames. Then, after a while, he looked at me. What if they come after me? They won't, I said. Not if you stay the course. And then, for the first time, I said the words out loud. If you keep doing what you're doing, the cabin's yours. End of the year. Deeded. No games. His eyes widened. You're serious? I'm always serious, I said. That's why they're scared of me now. He nodded. Jaw set. And in the firelight, he looked less like a boy I raised, and more like a man I might have chosen.